So, in my way of thinking, there are some unlikely missionaries, but nothing is impossible with God. God will use anybody to do anything if they simply say yes.
Welcome to Conversations. I'm John Bradshaw. My guest today is Steve Dickman, who is the president of an organization called OCI. Bottom line, Steve is all about mission, and his organization is all about mission and ministry. Steve, thanks for joining me.
It's my privilege to be here with you today.
OCA is an organization, I think I said OCA, but I meant to say OCI.
Thank you.
OCI is an organization that facilitates and supports mission and missionaries around the world in roughly how many countries?
We have about 370 ministries scattered in about 80 or 82 countries.
And somehow you coordinate that work.
Yeah, we act as an umbrella organization.
Yep.
They become members of OCI, and we have conventions, conferences scattered around the world. Last year, we had about 20 global conventions in different parts of the world.
Did you go to all of them?
No, sir. I didn't make all of them.
It'd be a lot of travel. Yeah.
I made a good share of them, but we had a good turnout last year. And the idea is to activate lay people, to inspire lay people that part of their work as one of God's children is to do mission, and not to wait until somebody says, "Hey, I'll pay you to do mission." No. We should be missionaries because we are God's children.
So OCI missionaries, let's call it that, these are people who run a full-time mission project, or is it the person who has a business and operates ministry mission under the auspices or through that business, for example?
So we have both things. We have organizational members, full members we call it, that have a nonprofit organization, and they're well organized with a board of directors and controlling documents and recognition by the government in their part of the world. And we have other people that are associate members. They may have a family ministry. They may own a piece of property in Costa Rica and start a lifestyle center and have that as a family ministry. But they want to be members of an organization where they can associate with like-minded people.
So you're encouraging people to be involved in ministry.
Yes.
Now, if we understand the biblical concept of the priesthood of all believers correctly, the Bible encourages everybody to be involved in ministry somehow. But what you're talking about here is taking it beyond shining as a light for Jesus in the factory where you work and looking for the opportunity to encourage a soul or share a piece of literature. You're taking that a step further. What does an OCI member ministry maybe look like? And the purpose for this conversation really is to encourage people to be engaged in ministry, to help people understand that everybody is called to be active for Jesus, maybe not in the same way, certainly not in all the same places, but that's what I'd like people to take away from this. God is calling me, God can use me in ministry. Describe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 OCI ministries, what they look like, what they do.
Great diversity, okay? So we could take the member ministry in Romania. Its name is Hergalia. It's a lifestyle center. They can accommodate 50 or 60 people at a time. They bring them in. They give them, they have physicians on staff. They have therapists on staff. They have rehabilitation available to those people. They give them a full lifestyle program. And, there's places like the Hergalia. And
that's a big deal.
And it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And Eden Valley and Yuchi Pines and Wildwood that are in that category. And then there's some people that just own a home on a small piece of property, a home lifestyle kind of thing, where they invite guests in and they have a few bedrooms that they allocate for that. They cook them good food and take them for walks, and they have an experience there that leads them to a closer walk with Christ. Mm-hmm. And so more medical, less medical as we would understand medical.
Right.
We
that
have
home thing, you can certainly minister to a person, but you're not going to have a physician on staff.
Probably not.
Right.
Even though I know of one where the doctor owns the home. It's called the Doctor's Inn.
Neat.
Okay, so great diversity there.
Yeah.
Orphanages.
Okay.
Similar kind of thing. Some are more organized and larger. Some are smaller and have a few people that, children that they take care of. Schools, probably generally more organized, but people also have like restaurants. They could have a restaurant. It's an outreach. It's a ministry while it is also the way they make their living, it's primarily an outreach or ministry to their community.
Do you think, while I hear you say this, do you think more people could do that? For example, you say it's a restaurant, that's how they make their living. So that people have got to eat, support themselves. They run the restaurant, that's their business. But they've said, we could run this business in such a way that it becomes a lighthouse, a light, a way to share Jesus. Do you think that more people are in that situation where they could say, this business of mine is going to be more than just putting down paving stones or more than just hanging sheetrock, for example? This business could really be a ministry. You think more people could do that?
I think they could. It's mostly about our mindset, I think.
You think? Why? How?
Our mindset determines what we do every day, right? When you get up in the morning, you decide how you're going to approach the problem. You can go hang sheetrock. I met someone today in a little restaurant here in the local town where we are. I just went to this restaurant and I walked in. This lady greeted me very nicely. She sat me down and she was smiling and she was very intentional. And within 2 minutes, we were having a conversation about Jesus because she said, I had an experience. I had a conversion experience. She says, I was raised as a Seventh-day Adventist, but I didn't have a relationship with Jesus. She said, but now I have a relationship with Jesus. And you could tell by the way she was smiling and interacting that it was her joy to discuss Jesus. And so that mindset is really what makes a difference, I think, in the way we interact with others and how we share Jesus with them.
Are there some business enterprises that seem to lend themselves more naturally to ministry outreach?
I think so. Not to qualify necessarily, but to say things like when you're touching a person in an intimate way with a health issue, you're interacting with them, they could be on a journey to demise. They have a different thought than someone who just came to get the sheetrock changed in their house. So their mindset of the person you interact with is sometimes greater opportunity to serve them when they're in a health crisis.
Physicians, healthcare providers are in a unique opportunity, aren't they? They're dealing with people that are vulnerable, and I don't mean to take advantage of them, I'm not meaning that.
No.
There are people who are considering end-of-life issues. When your health is fragile, you say, well, wait a minute, you become aware of the bigger picture. And healthcare professionals are uniquely situated to lean in there and provide spiritual support. I'm not talking about being overt. Right. Mrs. Brown, we could talk about your cancer, but I'd like to introduce you to Jesus. There's a really clumsy way of doing that. But there's an appropriate... I have a friend, actually. She went to medical school later in life than most people go to medical school. And then she needed to choose or wanted to choose her specialty. She said, I'm choosing geriatrics.
Okay.
I said, why'd you choose geriatrics? She said, because it gives me access to the whole family.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not just seeing patients going through on a production line, but it gives me the opportunity to say, let's talk about life. Have you considered the future? And so forth in appropriate ways, looking for opportunities. Oh, that was very smart. That was very intentional of her. She could have become an internist or a dermatologist or anything. She said, no, what I'm going to do is choose a specialty where I have the opportunity to speak to the family and to consider end-of-life issues.
So I think this is strategically, some of the counsel we have is that the medical missionary work is the right arm of the gospel.
Yeah.
It's a way to people's hearts. So is there an advantage to some of those methods? Yes. But do we need the others? Yes. Because not everybody's going to get sick.
That's
not
right.
Everybody's going to need the services of a lifestyle center. Not everybody's going to need those kinds of things. So we need other avenues to reach people. So I believe that God uses people in their gifts. I have a friend who is a carpenter, but he built a radio station.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why did a carpenter build a radio station?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Because he was in a part of the world where the people in the local, very remote region came to him and said, God doesn't know where our village is. He said, really? Tell me about that. He says, well, we've been asking him to send us a missionary for a long time, and he doesn't do it, so he must not know where we are. And he said, well, I'm sure he knows where you are. And he says, no, but would you send us a mission person? And he said, well, I don't know that I can send you a mission person, but let me think. And as he thought, God impressed him to start a radio station so he could minister to many of those villages down in that region because they felt like God didn't know where they were. And so God took a carpenter and built a radio station. So God can use whatever he wants, you know.
As you look at various parts of the world, and you can put your finger on a map and say, great things are happening there, huge things happening. There are projects in these places. People are coming to faith in Jesus. North America seems to be a little tougher. There might be reasons for that. What do you see? You live in North America. Your ministry extends around the world. So you leave home, you travel here, you come back, you travel there, you come back. You see every side of this equation. Not everybody's going to be able to go to Timbuktu in order to be a missionary, but everybody has been called to share Jesus in their place. What's your advice to someone who says in their heart, yeah, I want to share Jesus more, not sure where to start. I have a 9-to-5 job or I work third shift. What can I do? You work with people in ministry all around this planet. What's your advice to that person?
I think God chooses to use people closest to the problem to solve the problem. Now, it sounds easy on the surface, but you've got a neighbor. You live in a neighborhood. The other principle that I would like to just highlight a little bit is that God expects us to be faithful even in the little things. So if you have a passion and God has put a burden in your heart to do something more, and by the way, I think there's good reason for that at this time in Earth's history. I think we're living in a little different time in Earth's history. But if God is putting a burden on your heart to do a little something more, start where you are and be faithful in the little things. And if God opens then additional doors, step forward because God is directing our path. And if he finds us faithful in the little things, he says, I will make you ruler over greater things.
How does that guy or that woman working third shift in a factory, they say, well, I don't know where to start. I'm not asking you to prescribe every step of the journey for that person. But the person who listens to you go, this is a guy working in full-time ministry. Wow, I'm doing nothing. I need to do something. And this is as far as they get. What's your advice to them? How do they go about even starting in the small things where they are, identifying those small things, seeing those opportunities?
We have a motto at OCI. It's called the 3S rule. Start simple, start small, and start soon. Starting simple is starting with what you have. You're working the third shift. You will interact with people that no one else on the planet interacts with because of the nature of that third shift work. You're shopping at Walmart at a different time of day than most other people. You're walking the streets at a different time of day than other people. You have a very unique position. Your neighbors are on, most of them, a different schedule. But there's some that are on your same schedule. And so that's starting with what you have. And the other question is, when we find in the Bible God asking people, what do you have in your hand? He's helping them to identify what he wants them to use. He's not asking you to become suddenly someone you're not. He's saying, take what you have. If I've given you a gift for music, maybe you find other people who are interested in music and you work with those people. If I've given you a gift for bicycling, then find a group of bicyclers to hang out with and make an impact for me. That's what I gave you. God has given each one of us certain passions, certain gifts, certain talents, not accidentally, but on purpose, because he has a plan to use us to reach someone specifically. And so I think that's how we start where we are. We start small with what we have. And instead of saying, well, I'll do that next year, that'll be my 2026 plan. We say that's a 2025 plan, so that we put an immediacy to it and plan to do something without delay.
Have you ever met someone who simply just can't do anything in ministry and mission? Is there a person who's disqualified?
Well, I would say that, except for I met Dimda. And Dimda was a Buddhist. He was raised as a Buddhist. And he told me this. He said, I hated Christians.
Oh.
Okay? So he would be disqualified from being a missionary, right?
I suppose, yes.
Sounds
yes,
like it.
Sure.
Okay.
A Buddhist who hates Christians.
Yeah, Buddhist who hates Christians.
Buddhist missionary, I suppose.
Probably.
But that's not what we're really talking about here.
Not going to be a missionary.
Not serving
Not
Jesus.
likely.
No.
Well,
no, he's out.
He's out, except for God did something. God brought him in association with a ministry of OCI in the country of Malaysia. He ended up there because they needed a gardener. When he got there, he said, I wanted to go home immediately because I found out these people were Christians, and I hated Christians. Not only that, he said, but I didn't really want to be a gardener like they were thinking, because I was thinking like flowers and keeping the place nice. He said, but they had a farm. I didn't want to be a farmer. He said, but I couldn't go home. I stayed. Some friends kind of adopted him there. He got sick. He couldn't even get out of bed. He was so sick, and they were bringing him food and taking care of him. He said, why are you doing this? I can't pay you. Go away. He said, wait, I'm not going to go away. We're your friends. He said, plus Jesus loves you. He said, well, don't tell me about Jesus because I hate Christians. And but anyway, over a journey of time and circumstances, he got curious about a God who would use people that he hated to touch his life. And when he got curious, he said this to me. He said, I decided I would give God a test. I said, oh, I kind of laughed to myself. And I said, oh, you're going to give God a test. I said, that's very interesting. What kind of test did you give God? He said, well, I decided I would tell God. I'd become curious. And I said, I will study at this school where I'm the farmer, if you will let me. But I'm a Buddhist. I don't have any money, and I don't speak English. So you have to solve those problems. 3 days later, someone came and said, Dimda, we will pay your school fees. So he said, but they won't let me study because I'm a Buddhist. And they said, fill out the application. He was accepted. And he said, well, I don't know what to do. They teach all the classes in English. What am I going to do? I can't speak English. He showed up in class. And he said when he sat down in class, he could understand everything the teacher said.
Even though the teacher was speaking in English?
In English. Not only that, he said I could write my assignments in English.
No way.
He is now a baptized member of the Seventh-day Adventist Church who has moved back to his home country and is a missionary there. So in my way of thinking, there are some unlikely missionaries, but nothing is impossible with God. God will use anybody to do anything if they simply say yes.
Amen. You know what I never did? I never asked you what OCI stands for. I want you to tell me.
So, Outpost Centers International.
Okay, I get the international. That's all around the place. Outpost Centers. What's that?
So, if you study the writings of Ellen White, you'll find her many times mentioning we should work the cities from outpost centers. It's kind of a concept that comes even from the time of Enoch. He lived in the country, but he went to the cities and he ministered to the people in the cities, and then he came back to the country to refresh his mind. I'm not a city person, and I was in the country of India last year for a few weeks. And while I was there, I became very weary of the city noise and of the bedlam of the city. And I was very happy to get to a place where there are not so many people and the noise level was much lower. And so I can imagine trying to stay full time in that kind of setting and minister. You would get weary. So I think God designed this, that we should have places in the country where we can be and train and encourage and even bring people from the city there so that they can get a refreshment of their spirit. so they can get connected. You know, there's something about nature.
Yes, there is.
And being in nature that connects us with God in a way that nothing else will.
You know, it's really interesting that you say that, because people who've been doing for a while what you've done, or let's go back in time, people who really adopted this Outpost Center idea some time ago, they believed that. And there wasn't a lot of science backing that up. As time has gone by, the science backs it all up and demonstrates that this idea of being out of the city and in the country, the outpost idea, it's good for the mind, it's good for the body, it's good for the soul or one's spiritual well-being.
We have a ministry on the border between Alabama and Georgia. And when I arrived there late at night, they'd given me directions, and I thought that I had gone to the end of the end. Mm-hmm. And I pulled into what I thought was the correct driveway of where I was supposed to stay. But it didn't just look right, because it was like I was in backwoods, Alabama, and that it might not be wise for me to stay where I was. So I kind of put my car in reverse and I backed up and I thought a little bit, now, this is the directions, but it doesn't seem quite right. I'm not going to knock on that door. Just down, I went a little bit and found the right place. But nestled in that country setting is a little ministry, in the middle of nowhere. And people come from all over the world. They're 2.5 hours maybe from Atlanta Airport. And people come there and go to that ministry and get refreshed. We live in a world where travel is not as difficult as it used to be.
That's right.
And it's easier for people to come and go in places like this and to get that refreshment they need.
How do you end up involved in, full-time ministry? And the second part of the question, I guess, is full-time ministry takes on a lot of forms, but you're in full-time ministry facilitating, guiding, encouraging, shepherding full-time ministry. How do you end up in ministry at all, and then how do you get over to where you are now?
Very good question. I was raised in ministry. In fact, I was born in ministry.
How's that?
Both of my parents attended Madison College, and for those of you who know something about the history of the Seventh-day Adventist Church will recognize Madison College as fostered by Ellen White through Sutherland and McGann, two individuals chosen by God to do this work. Both my parents attended there. Then they helped to start a self-supporting school in West Tennessee. And that's where I was born.
Yeah, but you didn't need to stay with that. You could have chased architecture or accounting or,
I did.
or professional football.
I did.
You chased those things? Is that what you're saying?
When I graduated from high school, I took a course in engineering.
Okay, yeah.
Graduated as an engineer, worked in that field for about 10 years.
All right.
But the Lord began to call us, interestingly enough, here's my theory. When you have seen that kind of service illustrated in your family, it's hard for you to escape from it. There's a certain fulfillment that comes from serving other people without looking for something in return. And that's what my parents demonstrated to me. They taught me about unselfish service. They taught me that concept. They lived that concept. It wasn't like they had a course in this, but it was like I lived in this thing. And there's a certain fulfillment that comes from that doesn't come other ways. And so when God began to work on my heart, I was working as an engineer, had a job. We were active in the local church, but God was saying, something else is here for you. And eventually ended up back at Harbert Hills as the administrator. And my father retired. I became the administrator there for the institution.
That's the school in West Tennessee that you all operate.
Yeah. So then from there, my father got me involved in ASI. For those who know ASI, I ended up serving 6 years as ASI president.
Describe ASI.
It's the Adventist Layman Services and Industries, and it is a cousin to OCI.
Yeah, not altogether dissimilar.
Not dissimilar, but ASI has a whole retinue of business people that belong to the organization that are very mission-minded and really have elevated sharing Christ in the marketplace to a whole new level. And when they get together, you get excited. And it's a fantastic organization, and I love ASI. And OCI kind of came out of that because we saw the need, or a need was seen. I wasn't involved at that time in OCI, but the need was observed that we need a place for the ministries to come together as a family, as a network, because there's some certain things that happen in ministry that are unique. Working on the front lines in an orphanage in Africa, working on the front lines in a lifestyle center in Zambia or somewhere else on the planet, South America, wherever. It's a unique situation where leaders need support, and it's hard to get support in that situation because you're self-supporting. You're not intimately tied with the church's organizational structure. So it's a little challenging to get that kind of support. And so they need a place to come and hang their hat and talk together and pray together. And part of the essence of OCI is we provide that. I mean, literally, I've been moved myself to tears personally as I've seen these frontline people coming together. I was at a meeting in Bolivia where we had called the ministries from that part of South America together. And I saw one of our ministry leaders just weeping and crying for something that was happening at his ministry, and other ministry leaders gathering around him and praying for him. It just helped me to see the need of that kind of thing. They just gathered around him, they prayed for him, and they said, "Brother, we're going to help you through this. This is not a burden you need to carry alone." And so there's something that happens in that kind of setting that is necessary for all of us as leaders to have a place where we can go and we can talk and we can share and we can get support that doesn't happen naturally where you are on the front lines.
Which suggests something to me. You spent 10 years as an engineer, but now you're arm in arm, shoulder to shoulder with people in varying situations, and I'm just imagining that bond now, that work environment now in ministry has to be, I don't want to denigrate secular work, I don't mean to do that, but it's got to bring with it blessings and experiences that you could never have dreamt of in a secular work environment.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sometimes people ask me, "Do you miss your engineering work?" I say, "No." Would you go back to it? I don't think so. There's an interesting story in the Bible, and I didn't follow this counsel because I didn't know it at the time, but Elisha, when he was called by Elijah,
correct,
he chopped up his plow
That's
and
right.
killed his oxen and boiled the flesh and fed his neighbors and had a party. He said, "I'm not going back to farming.
No going back.
I am on a new journey now."
Yeah.
I kept my engineering license for a number of years and paid dues to be a professional engineer. When I learned this concept, I quit paying my dues because I said, "I'm not going back to that. Why am I doing this? I'm on a different journey now."
And I ask that question not because there's anything wrong at all.
No.
But there's something deeply fulfilling about stepping into the ministry arena, working alongside people who have left everything in many cases to serve God, who are facing unique challenges, and their burden is to see people come to faith in Jesus. That's a wonderful environment. Talk to me about a unique, different ministry that someone might say, "Wow, that's a little different."
I think of, and I'll just name Henry and Arlene Stubbs. You know them.
Yes, I do. Great people.
They have adopted the country of Cuba.
Yep.
Pretty challenging place to work right now.
Yes.
Economic conditions are at their lowest, you might say, for a long time.
That's
and
right.
Political meanderings that we don't even understand, and difficulties. But the Lord's laid a burden on their heart to take the good news of Jesus and establish a church in every city in Cuba.
Oof. That's no small task.
That's no small task.
Yeah.
They quit their jobs, sold things,
Yep.
and they're in full-time ministry
Wow.
with a mission to do something unique in the country of Cuba. Praise God for it. I mean, when you see that, it makes you want to put your boots on and do something to help them accomplish that vision.
Yes.
I mean, and like I told the story of Mike who starts a radio station, and I got to tell you, Deem Da, the guy in Cambodia who hated Christians.
Yeah.
Guess what he's doing today
What's
in
he
the
doing
country
now?
of Cambodia?
What's that?
He's teaching English.
Oh, that's funny. Really.
That is really funny.
The guy who couldn't take
He couldn't
the course,
speak
didn't
English.
speak English.
Yeah, but God sent him back to his country. He starts ministering to the children, teaching. He said, God, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So you're going to teach the children English.
I asked some missionaries in Cambodia that they're doing a work there. I said, are more missionaries needed in Cambodia? And the response was, are you yes. Yet we could do, I said, how many more? He said, there's no number. So I'm reminded that Jesus said, the harvest is great, but the laborers are few. There's room for more people. Not everybody needs to do the same thing or follow the same model, but there's room for more people to serve Jesus and be involved in ministry, isn't there?
Yeah, I just ask a simple question. Can you speak English? Now, many of your viewers will say, yes, I can speak English.
Yeah.
There'd be some that would maybe see this that, no, they couldn't, but they'd be listening to some other way. But if you speak English, there's opportunity in many countries of the world to go and just be an English teacher, be an influence. The whole Middle East is open. People want to learn English. They want to learn these other languages of the world, and you don't have to be an English teacher to do that. You have to be able to speak English. It's your first language. You can teach other people.
Now, there are a lot of reasons that people choose not to be involved in ministry, and not everybody, I'm not trying to suggest everybody should go somewhere else.
Right, that's
As
true.
we spoke earlier, some people, the best place you could be a missionary is right where you are, and that's where God's put you. You mentioned the Middle East, and someone is thinking, oh man, you're getting dangerous now. You're getting dangerous now. What about that danger factor when people consider mission and ministry? I'm certain, not because you have told me, but I just feel certain that there are OCI missionaries who are in parts of the world where they've got to be real careful. That's a guess. I don't ask you to confirm or deny that. So what do you tell someone when they say, ooh, this could be really dangerous for me? If no one went to the dangerous places, then there'd be no Christians in the South Pacific, numerous places around the world where the gospel would never have gone. How do we approach that fact?
The question is a very good one because we as human beings are generally self-protective, right?
Sure.
We're going to stay as safe as we can. We've got our limits. We won't do certain things that are risky, and that's a good thing to a certain degree.
Yes.
Okay? But we have chosen on purpose to become followers of someone who did the most risky thing that could ever be done.
That's right.
We decided we would adopt the name of Christ. We would say we are Christians. Jesus left the safest place in the universe to come to the most risky place in the universe so that we could have the opportunity for life. Now you say, well, he could have left any time. It's true, but when he came, there were eternal risks. There were universal risks. This was not a stage with a play. This was real, and if he lost the battle, there were eternal consequences for him. If he's our example, if we have truly adopted his name, would it be wrong for us to deny sacrifice for him? I don't know. My own personal study and my own personal experience leads me to believe that while there are risks, these risks are our opportunity to deepen our relationship with God. Because risk requires us to depend on him, not ourselves. If there are no risks, if we've got every problem solved, we've got the thermostat set on 72.4 because 72.2 is too cold for us and 72.6 is too hot for us. And we've got, the latest safety devices in our automobiles, and we've got everything risk reduced. We're living a pretty sterile life, and Jesus didn't live that kind of life. And am I really following him if that's my focus?
We think of the early Christians who risked everything. The Apostle Paul was shipwrecked and beaten and stoned with stones and all kinds of things. We are really happy he went through that for our benefit. Not that he is our Savior, but he advanced the gospel and left us a large chunk of the New Testament. We're really happy he did that. You know, you might remember the story. A young fellow named John Chau, C-H-A-U.
I do.
I don't know his state of mind. I don't know whether he was a good guy or a bad guy. I don't know. But he went to one of the Andaman Islands in the Indian Ocean. I think it's part of India, way out there. And this is a place where missionaries don't go. People stay away from them. They'll kill you. And he felt like the gospel had to go there. So he went. I think he had someone drop him off. And they killed him. His dad is very angry. I'm not going to fault his dad. I can understand that. I don't know whether his dad's a Christian or shared the boy's point of view. You know what I think, Steve? And I know what I know. I don't know all the ins and outs of that story.
Right.
I don't know. But you know what I think? I think he did the right thing. I think he was convicted to go and take Jesus to people who never had received the gospel before. I mentioned the South Pacific Islands. Now, I'm from a South Pacific country, but I'm not one of the islands. Missionaries died there left and right before the gospel really took over. And I can tell you now, Tongans and Samoans and Fijians, they're happy today. Solomon Islanders are happy today that there were missionaries willing to go through what they went through in order to bring them the gospel and a better and more fulfilling way of life. I don't think missionaries who put themselves in harm's way, if it's a calculated risk and they're following the leading of Jesus, are doing the wrong thing at all, because before this thing is over, a lot more missionaries are going to face a lot more harm.
I found myself last year looking at the map because I was in the country of India.
Okay.
And I saw the name there, Sundarban Islands. That's where John went.
Okay.
And I wasn't far from there. And I said, I'm not far from where John went and where they dropped him off on one of those islands just off the coast of India there. And I had a new revelation about where I was. And I had to think about this. Would I be willing to go there? Would I be willing to let someone drop me off on some place like that? In essence, Jesus did that and more. Mm-hmm. For us, and so there is risk, and we should calculate them and be careful.
Yes.
As often as we can.
Yes, and only follow the leading of God.
Right.
Yet you're convinced God is calling you.
Yeah, you must be very convinced.
Yes.
And I say Gideon was a good guy because he gave us this demonstration of how to test God in a way, and say, God, I want to be sure, and I think that's fair. For us to say, God, I want to be sure. If you're calling me here, I want to be sure.
Someone's thinking, okay, I've got a business, I have a health practice, I have whatever, I have means, and I wonder if this can work as a ministry. So tell me about another, you mentioned one or two, Henry and Arlene and the radio station. Tell me about another 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 OCI ministries doing interesting things, just as an example of what can be done when people get creative and step out in faith.
So some people take what they have, the skill they have, and they do something in line with that skill to have a greater impact.
For example,
we have the Herglia Ministry in Romania. It was started by Dr. Nick Dan and his family as using his medical skills. He's a doctor.
Yeah.
He started this and grew it under somewhat challenging circumstances to start with, but into something that's very significant. So I think it's appropriate that we would say, take what you have and grow that, use that skill and grow it. I know dentists who have started ministries that they have a home practice here in the United States. They practice dentistry, and then they take their some of their earnings and they go forth to the different parts of the world, and they take mobile dental units and they do dentistry in different parts of the world and help people relieve their pain and show them a picture of Jesus as a healer, and they go back and they do more dentistry and earn more money and go out back do more ministry, and I like that model. But I also like the model where Dr. Kim and his wife sold their practice and went to the country of Bolivia and started a missionary training school with everything they had. So
I've met those missionaries. We were in Bolivia a couple of years ago, and a gaggle of them came down to where we were, and what a wonderful program.
Yeah. So God has this thing where he uses anybody to do anything, is what I say. So, whether it's a lifestyle thing, we have ministries that are, I think of a little school in Tanzania. They call it the Eden Valley Foster Care Mission.
Eden Valley. Now there's an Eden Valley healthcare ministry in Colorado.
Yeah. So the Eden Valley Healthcare Ministry in Colorado sponsored the beginnings of this.
I see. Yeah.
And a lady went there. You may know her, Janet Fournier. She started a little ministry there because there were a lot of orphans because of the AIDS problem in that region of Africa. I visited that school last year and rejoiced in the fact of the growth that has been seen there. And they're starting another school there, and they're doing some medical missionary outreach, and they have an agricultural program, and students are being trained, and they have a little printing operation. I never was a printer, and I never really knew what printing was all about, but I learned there that you don't have to have highbrow equipment to be a printer. They had a copier and a glue gun, and they built their own books because they needed them in that language in that part of Tanzania, and they're making their own books. I'm looking at this, and I'm going, yeah, you can do this. And finally, they got a little binder where it would run through, and they'd put the glue on automatically, and they'd have covers, and they felt like they'd moved uptown because now they had a little binder there. But very simple things. God is using people creatively to do things like this. And so the lady that's in charge there, I'm trying to remember, Nadesh. I don't know if you've met Nadesh, but if you have a chance sometime, meet her. She says, I want to start schools like this all over Africa. Well, God has showed her what to do there, and she's the director there, and her and her husband now, and they want to see things start in other places. And so they're inspiring the students who are attending there. Go start something somewhere else. A young man came from Ethiopia to that school. And he was pretty unplugged from God when he came, but he got connected to God and he got inspired to do something. And when he went home to Ethiopia, he said, I'm going to go to my area and I'm going to start something. Well, we had another ministry that had tried to start something there, and they eventually said, we don't think we can do it. It's too tough of an area. Well, this young man said, that's where I'm from. I can do it because I know how to live there. I know the language there. I know the people there. I know the culture there. So a young man who is trained at this little school is going now into Ethiopia to this part where no one else wants to go because it's tough. It's hot. There's certain kinds of malaria in that region that you and I can't deal with. But he knows how to deal with it because he's from there. And so when I look at places like that and I say, can anybody do something? Yes.
The Bible tells us that this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness to all nations, then the end will come. It impresses me that for the gospel to go everywhere, there are going to have to be more people going somewhere. More missionaries, more ministries, more ministry. I wonder if we haven't yet seen the best of what we're going to see, the most creative, the most impactful. At least we're going to see some remarkable things as people follow God's leading and go to where the gospel's never gone before. Let me ask you this question. Why do some ministries come unglued? You've been at this long enough that you've seen ministries start small, get bigger, and not that size is the only thing in ministerial success. Start shaky and get solid. My guess is you've also seen ministries, maybe good ideas, start, go forward, and then implode. Now, so that you don't have to say this, I will. Maybe some ministries should die off. Maybe they're just inherently unhealthy. Perhaps. You can't imagine that every last ministry is as pure as the driven snow. But anyhow, that aside, what are some of the common pitfalls or potholes for ministries? What are the challenges that sometimes are responsible for really shaking ministries?
I think the thing to look at is what makes them be successful, and then to say the opposite of that may help them to be unsuccessful. Okay. Ministries that start by trying to build a strong team generally grow and do better than ministries that start as a solo thing where you're just going to go out there and do this no matter what it costs and what it requires. You're going to be the lone ranger. You're going to fix all the problems. You're going to do everything yourself. It takes a team to do ministry.
Okay, honestly. That's an important point.
Okay?
Yeah.
So if you can't build a team or attract a team, then it will probably not outlast you.
Because you get idealistic missionaries, and I know some who have gone to some place, some worthwhile place with worthy ambitions. They just kind of died on the vine, and it's interesting you say that. I'm thinking, yeah, they never had a team around them. They didn't have the support they needed. It was just them, probably doomed from the beginning, I guess, taking that into account.
But even in those situations, they may have done their good.
Yes.
Sometimes ministry has a season.
I'm interested that you would say that. I was going to ask that very thing. Please explain. And we've got to come back. So explain that. Sometimes ministry has a season.
Let me use our school in Tanzania, the Eden Valley Foster Care, as an example.
Yeah.
AIDS is not the same problem it used to be. They don't have the same number of orphans that are streaming into that place for that reason. But there are young people who want to come and want to get an education and want to do something. And so the need is still there, but it's a shifted focus.
Okay.
So another thing that happens is ministries get stuck where they are. They are on one page, and that's the only page they know, and it's the only song they know, and they sing that song until there's no one to sing it to, a kind of thing. Because they're locked in, they can't see that the world is progressing and changing, and maybe the need in the community is different. And so I think that's another key, that ministry leaders have to be always looking around them and looking to the future and saying, what's next? How do we go from where we are to what may be next? I mean, you have to do this, for it is written. You're thinking, words are in your vocabulary today that were not there 3 years ago.
Oh, that's correct, yeah. Imagine if we had said, we want nothing to do with the internet. Imagine if we were saying today, we're not interested in what's coming next, we don't want to adapt. The lifespan would be very short.
So we have to look at those things as leaders of institutions. We have to always be looking and saying, where's God asking us to take another step? Mm-hmm. Or is he saying, stay where you are? That's okay. What you're doing is what I need you to do here now. So, between building a team and leadership foibles, sometimes we as leaders just do stupid things. That's the reality of it. I hate to admit it. I've done my share, and it's not fun to have to learn the hard way. But we do that sometimes. We make mistakes, and we try to fix them, and sometimes we succeed, and sometimes we don't. But that's another factor. So try not to be stupid.
That's really good advice.
Or to do things that are just not wise. And build a team that's strong, and that if you get a strong team, you can back off and let them help you in ways you could never do yourself.
Why mission? Generally, for you, for somebody else, for Christians, for the church, why mission when we could just satisfy ourselves with padded pews and our comfortable church environment? Why? Why do you do this, Steve? Why do you have 370 organizations you're helping? You have never said this to me, but why sometimes, surely, you feel like you're banging your head against a brick wall because something's not going the way it should, or some people aren't acting how they should. That's life. I'm not putting words in your mouth. That's coming from me. Why do you get up every day and go, okay, we're just going to do ministry today?
Even just last Sabbath, I heard a sermon that moved me. And the idea behind the sermon was simple. This is what Jesus did. This is how Jesus continues to suffer because we have not fully engaged in mission. So take a step up. Do a little more if you can. But why? The real reason why did Jesus come? Because someone shared with me a series of quotes from Spirit of Prophecy, Ellen White, and says, a soul is worth more than millions. A soul is worth more than all the gold and silver you can heap up on this earth. A soul is worth more than this whole world. A soul is worth more than 10,000 worlds like this. And then the capstone, a soul, every soul, is of infinite value. I think that has to be our driving motivation, because if it's not, like you said, we're going to get tired. We're going to get weary some days. I've had my days. Reality is, last year I traveled to 20 countries. That's a lot of time on the road and in different situations where you're just not comfortable sometimes. But I have to have myself anchored in, what is the reason? Why do I get up and do this? Because I believe Jesus is coming soon, and every soul is of infinite value. If we can keep that in mind, I think it'll help us to keep our focus on the right things.
Have you ever found yourself in danger as you're traveling, doing your work? What you call
somebody
danger?
The other day asked me if I'd been to any of the countries in the Middle East, and I said, yeah. I've been to Iraq. And they said, well, did you feel afraid? I said, no, I felt very safe there.
Right now you can get in and out of Iraq and feel quite good.
I have felt unsafe at certain times.
Yeah.
But then you have to stop and think, where's the safest place to be on the entire planet? It's where God wants you to be. And so I try to make sure I'm pretty well certain that God wants me to go somewhere, do something. And then I can just kind of relax and say, if it's my end day, if it's my last day, it's okay because I was where God wanted me to be. So, but it can be challenging sometimes because there are conditions out there that are sometimes unsafe and unfriendly, and you feel a little bit compromised. But God has been faithful in my case.
So you support 370 odd ministries. What would you like to see? You look into the future and say, here's a goal, here's a dream, and this can be personal ministry, OCI, the church, the world. What would you like to see looking forward? And I think I mean in the context of ministry and ministry reach.
Okay, so here's what I know. 8 billion plus people on the planet. 7,164 active languages that are being spoken. Over 16,000 identified separate people groups. I believe that we should have lay people in every people group of the world doing ministry and mission. We should have every language, some kind of translation effort, at least of the basic gospel. As a Seventh-day Adventist church, we're probably only speaking to less than 600 of those 7,164 languages.
Oh, that hurts.
I believe that God wants us as Seventh-day Adventists to take the three angels' messages literally to fulfill Revelation chapter 14, verse 6, to every nation and kindred and tongue and tribe and people. And I believe that He will use lay people that are willing to be used and expand the army of people in mission and ministry. I also believe, John, that we need training schools regionally scattered across the planet, because we should not bring people from across the world just to America. They get lost here. They get attracted to things here. Let's start training schools in Asia. Let's start training schools to train lay people to go out and do mission and ministry in those very challenging areas. They know the language already. They know the culture already. It's a huge opportunity for us to look and strategize and think together. What could we do? Because Jesus wants to come.
And as you said a minute ago, a soul is of infinite value. Okay, a couple of things. One, I want to ask you how the school is doing. You mentioned that you've had an association in your family as with Harvard Hills Academy in West Tennessee. So how's the school? And tell me a little bit about the school.
Yeah, well, it was 1952. This school was started on a piece of paper in Nashville, Tennessee. And they got some property donated, and there was nothing there, just woods, just raw land. And Madison students and staff came there and drove a stake in the ground and started clearing land. And today we have a 49-bed nursing home, a radio station, a television station, a school there, an academy, a boarding academy. We have students from all over the world there, about 70 students engaged in education, learning how to do practical as well as academic work to qualify them to be missionaries in some of these remote regions of the world. We also have an elementary school there, and the Lord is good. He has blessed us. He has sustained us and brought us to today. We don't know about tomorrow, but today we're there, and we're doing ministry. We're doing mission because of God's blessing.
Fantastic.
Because He is good.
Fantastic. Before I let you get, now that is someone saying, what school is that? Harbert Hills Academy. Yeah, fantastic. And in Savannah, Tennessee. Yeah. Now, before we wind up, someone says, I can't go back to sleep. I cannot go back to warming the pews. I don't know if this means that I need to go to Uganda or Laos or the Tierra del Fuego or whatever. I don't know, but I know I got to get started. I know I have to do something for Jesus. What do they do right now?
The first thing I say is to pray, because God directs us through prayer. But God also directs us through circumstances and through gifting us in certain ways. So pray for God to open a door. If we've been faithful in something little, He'll give us something greater to do. Or you can look on the OCI website. We have a list of ministry opportunities around the globe. If you don't like Tanzania, you can choose Zambia. If you don't like Zambia, you can choose Bolivia. If you don't like Bolivia, you can choose Costa Rica. So it gives you some opportunity to see the opportunities. So you can go to the OCI website.
And what is that?
Outpostcenters.org.
Outpostcentersoneword.org.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we have ministry opportunities there. And if you can't go, you can say, I can pray. You can begin to pray down that list of ministries that are there, 370 plus ministries scattered in 81 or 82 or how many ever countries. You can pray. And maybe you can't go, and maybe you don't feel like a qualified prayer warrior, still pray.
That's right.
But you can also give.
Sure.
Those ministries have needs. They're on the front lines, and they're connected there where you can see what their needs are. And you can be a part of that, or to help a ministry get going, get something, get the next step, because God will use that.
Outstanding. This has been great fun. There is nothing more important or more interesting to me than ministry and mission after God and family. You understand? And for you to take your time to share with us today, it's a big deal. Wish you well. I know that every day is an adventure for you. For OCI, there are people in the field all around the world doing great things for God. And with the return of Jesus right upon us, I believe, we're going to see God do some great things. You're in a very exciting place, so God bless you.
Amen. Thank you for the time today to share.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us. This has been fun. I hope you have been blessed. He is Steve Dickman, the president of Outpost Centers International, OCI. I'm John Bradshaw, and this has been our conversation.